Charisma is one of the most desired traits out there, and everyone wants to be more charismatic. Let's just put it out there. I want to be more charismatic, you would like that as well, and every single human being could just picture the charismatic version of them and be excited at that prospect. And that's not something bad, because charisma is actually just authenticity, they go hand in hand. And I once heard a definition of charisma that completely changed the way I look at it, and it all made sense when I heard it because I saw it in every single charismatic friend of mine. And that is that charisma is basically showing your emotions on steroids and owning that fully. That's just what it is, nothing more than that. It's not a complicated set of tips and tricks that you can employ whenever you want. It's just you being fully transparent and even exaggerating and hyper owning your emotions. And I bet that if you take some time to think about it, you realize that it's exactly the same in your life as well. You have these friends that are just so transparent with their emotions. They don't fear showing some emotion, whether positive or negative. Even the more reserved people, the mysterious ones, they are still doing this. They hyper exaggerate and own their emotions, which are a bit more distant and a bit more cold, and they are still charismatic. My hopes through this video are that by the end of it, you will understand what being charismatic actually is and the way for you to get to that point precisely. Now, I'm definitely talking as a person that's not at the end of the road, just looking back at you. I'm on my way, I'm on my journey, and I'm still not able to be like that all the time. But I truly believe that I have at least a decent understanding of this, and I want to share some of the things that I learned about this subject. Now, the most important thing and the biggest impediment you will face, and the biggest impediment that I am facing right now, is the fact that you might be a bit needy. You caring about other people's reactions, you caring about the way they think about you, about their reactions, that milliliter of neediness is enough to make you uncharismatic. Because you see, the people that are charismatic, they don't do it for others, they do it for themselves. A person that's really funny, that person doesn't make jokes for you to laugh, they make jokes for themselves. They make jokes that facilitate their humor, that make themselves laugh. And that's why you find it so funny. That's why it's such a nice vibe around it and you adore it. Charisma works the exact same way as that. A gram of neediness, a little thought, a little hope that people will approve of you, that people will like what you're talking about, that people will validate you, that can ruin it all, because people sense inauthenticity. When you care about what they're gonna think about you, you block yourself from being yourself fully, because now you have these filters. Now you have to filter every single word that comes to your mind through the lens of, do they accept it, will they validate it, or will they not validate it? Is it acceptable? Okay, I'm gonna say it. Is it not acceptable? Then let's just not say it. And this takes away from your charisma, but at the same time, this can also be quite a tricky situation, because if you are just completely unfiltered, saying whatever comes to your mind all the time, that's still not good, because you might just behave in an inappropriate way to the social circumstance you're in. So for example, you're making jokes at a funeral, you don't really want that. That's why you also need to have a bit of an understanding and to still have a tactic about it, but the difference between having an intentional tactic and the previous version of you that's just behaving in a way that gets the most validation possible is that the previous version of you has a tactic to facilitate validation. The current version of you has a tactic to facilitate authenticity and also fitting in the larger social norms, we could say. Now, the thing that will help you the most when it comes to neediness and to not being needy anymore is emotional management, honestly. And this is not an answer that most people are going to be excited about, because emotional management sounds a lot less cool than learning tips and tricks and mastering the art of charisma with some lines that are written there with dots. But this is the only way, literally, because as I said, charisma is all about emotions, charisma is all about feeling, and logic has nothing to do with this. Like, if you learn the perfect tips and tricks and you implement them to perfection, you're still gonna be uncharismatic because it's not something you authentically and truly resonate with. So this is not something you can fake. That's the most important part of it. There is no faking charisma because when you fake it, people sense it and it's weird. I'm sure you have encountered people that try to fake charisma, and it's really not a very nice experience to be around them because there is just something weird. They just give you a bit of the ick because they are tryharders. This thing makes the difference between charismatics and tryharders. And you definitely don't want to be in the latter category. I want you to imagine the version of you that's not needy as the version of you that doesn't care about others. You encounter a new person, you meet a new person of the same gender as you look up to them, you want them in your life, but you don't need them in your life. An abundance mindset is useful here, where you might want to imagine you have 10 of those friends already exactly on the same pattern as this new person you pedestalize. Well, you don't need this new person anymore, right? There's no scarcity about it. You're able to be a lot more relaxed. You're able to act from a place of authenticity rather than scarcity. And the same with people of the opposite sex. For example, you feel needy, you feel anxious around a person of the opposite gender. Imagine you have 5 of those persons sliding in your DMs. This exercise is just gonna put you in the abundance mindset quite a bit. And when you do feel the abundance within you, you can't be needy anymore. And perhaps it's gonna be quite tough for you to do this exercise to really step into that mindset for real. But you might actually get to a point in your life where it's gonna click for you, where you're gonna have so many people around you, where you're gonna have so many opportunities, so many things to do. And you will just realize that, oh, like all of a sudden I don't feel needy anymore. Interesting. Now, the way to stop being needy is emotional management, as we already discussed. But what is emotional management? To some extent, it's inner work, working with yourself, feeling everything you need to feel, and processing everything you need to process. But sometimes, and especially in the moment, the most important thing is to just acknowledge the things you're feeling. Because we are just used to pretend like everything's fine, right? We are used to be like, oh, I do feel a bit of anxiety. I do feel my throat quite tense, but everything's fine. I have to be fine, right? I have to raise up to the expectations. I have to be the best version of myself. It doesn't always work that way because coping will just facilitate your anxiety, your neediness, your negative emotions to persist. And we don't want them to persist. We want them to come and then to go away as soon as possible. That's the healthy way. I actually journaled about this topic yesterday, so I want to take some inspiration from it as well. Yeah, there was some very cool line I heard, some very cool quote that said something along the lines of real self improvement is learning to lie to yourself less. That's deep. That's really deep because we all keep lying to ourselves quite a lot. We all lie to ourselves every single day. We all pretend things are actually different from what they really objectively are. And we all have a subjective perspective on reality that doesn't allow us to be in touch with what's actually real, but with the story we tend to tell ourselves, with the story we want to believe. And that story is not always a positive story. Sometimes the stories you tell yourself are negative because being anxious, being needy is easier than actually taking accountability and being authentic. So it's quite a tricky one. It's really hard to spot everything in the moment, but it's very, very valuable to prioritize this to the maximum possible extent. Now, honoring your emotions is gonna get you one step closer to you processing everything you need to process and actually becoming charismatic, unleashing that inner charisma that you already have. But what you might encounter is that sometimes you don't really feel extremely, how can I say, conventionally attractive Because you have this image in social media that the person that is charismatic, that's got the Reese, they are always attractive, they are always saying something cool or doing something cool. But truthfully, there is no right way of being. And as we already established, the way for you to show off your charisma, to put it out there, is to embrace your emotions. So if there comes a moment where you don't really feel like talking a lot, well, you can still be charismatic while being more reserved. You can still be charismatic while being more mysterious. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to behave in a certain way. The way you feel like behaving is already the perfect way. I just hit my head back there. And then again, there are gonna be people around whom you're gonna feel more relaxed because you vibe with them more. There are people around whom you're gonna feel a bit more awkward because they are just not on the same wavelength as you. And you don't have to be on all the time, you don't have to be perfect all the time. And that's perfectly fine. That's how life works. You don't have to beat yourself up about it.